Okay, welcome to the public portion of the Chatham Township Committee meeting on September 27th, 2022. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So first off this evening, I wanted to highlight our amazing Department of Public Works. We all see them plowing our streets in snowstorms and maintaining our parks. But one lesser known function of our DPW is their maintenance of our water pollution control plant. I hope you all don't need me to go into details about what could happen if our WPC were to fail, but let's just say it would be a major problem. Well, the afternoon of Monday, September 12th, the water pollution control plant suffered from a total power failure. With good training and quick thinking, Assistant Chief Operator Matthew Miller was able to recognize the emergency and initiate the plant and staff into emergency procedures. The manager of the WPC, Michael Hajar, along with Matthew Miller, worked around the clock to find the correct So worked around the clock to find the correct, sorry, lost where it was. Okay, thank you. The manager of the WPC, Michael Hajar, along with Matthew Miller, worked around the clock to find the correct CT switchgear so that the plant could be put back online. Michael and Matthew worked with several contractors in the area with the Thomas Walsh and the Township to track down this necessary component. They were able to locate the CT switchgear with a vendor in Texas. Once it was located, they started the process of having them program the component. In order to program the switchgear, the vendor said it would take 2 to 3 days for it to arrive, and then another 2 to 3 days for programming. During this time, the WPC crew, which exists of 6 employees, had to work around the clock by doing split shifts and working overtime until the switchgear was fully installed. Power was finally restored on Tuesday evening, September 20th. That's 8 days after the shutdown. During this emergency event, there was no loss of services to our township residents, and that alone is truly remarkable, and all thanks to the quick action by our WPC staff. The WPC staff consists of Michael Hajar, Matthew Miller, Aaron Roth, Edward Faris, Michael Duffy, and Chatham's own David Panos. These gentlemen recognized the emergency, relied on their training, and stepped up and did what they had to do to be done for the residents of Chatham Township. We can't thank them enough for their invaluable service to our community.
You guys want to come up?
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and look at your face.
I've got mine right here. I got it.
I would have liked.
We're gonna get in there? Yeah, well, yeah, perfect. Yes.
I'll send you the picture.
Okay. On a different note, I'd like to recognize this evening two outstanding Chatham Township residents, Addie Sinha and Ishir Rao. These two Chatham Township high school students founded a computer programming camp for no charge to Chatham residents. Their 6-day student-run camp held at the Library of the Chathams provided computer science educational opportunities for students ages 6 to 15. Computer science and programming is the future of our country, and because of these two high school students, all kids in our community can be introduced to these concepts and future career paths completely free of charge. To find out more about their organization or to donate to this amazing cause, visit csbase.org. I'd like to honor these students this evening with the Chatham Citizens Award. Guys want to come up?
Be close together there.
Okay. Also, we will be swearing in our new police chaplain tonight, Pastor Ellen Claymont. The Reverend Dr. Ellen Clark Claymont is the senior pastor of the Presbyterian Church of Chatham Township, elected by the congregation to serve the 700-member church in November 15th, 2020. Dr. Claymont, who goes by Pastor Ellen or the Rev, at church, is an ordained minister of word and sacrament in the Presbyterian Church. Ellen received her Doctor of Ministry degree from Duke Divinity School in 2020 and her Master of Divinity degree from Princeton Theological Seminary in 2012. She has won awards for her writing on Christian ethics and church leadership and published her first book in June of this year called Discerning Welcome, about welcoming refugees entering the U.S. Prior to serving in the ministry, Ellen spent over 20 years practicing international business law in New York City, London, and Paris. She met her husband, Andre, in France, where they lived for several years and started their family. Today, Ellen and Andre live in Madison and enjoy regular visits from their two daughters who now reside in New York City and Washington, D.C. Ellen completed her required basic course for police chaplains in June of 2020. Ellen is pleased to be a part of the Chatham Township community and honored to serve as chaplain to the Chatham Township Police Department. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. State your name.
I, Ellen Clark Claymont,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New
of the
Jersey,
State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state
and in this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
all the duties
of the office of police chaplain
of the office of police chaplain
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I'm not sure I doubled.
Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. And finally, I want to remind everyone, our next township committee meeting will be our first workshop meeting. It's still open to the public and everything. It'll just be a very different format. So now on to the approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Is there a motion to add an
I will
extension?
move for the,
Okay.
the amended agenda,
Okay.
including the bus extension.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anybody taking anything out of the consent agenda?
Could we just have
No,
a
that
number
was-
for the bus resolution, I guess? Is that could be? So we just added that resolution.
All right, now we're moving to the hearing of citizens.
We're skipping reports.
Oh, sorry. I messed it up. Sorry about that. On to reports. Committee woman, Ewald.
So the Madison Chatham Coalition met on September 20th. They have been approved for 5 more years of federal funding. They get an annual grant of $125,000 a year. Just to remind everybody, their focus is on alcohol and drug prevention for kids 12 to 18. They did mention they'll have a presence, they and the Municipal Alliance Committee of the Chathams will have a presence at Bottle Hill Day in Madison on October 1st this weekend from 10 to 4. And they will also have people for Cougar Weekend on October 1st. So certainly if you want more information, they're a wonderful resource, so reach out to them. The Senior Center has their paper shred fundraiser on Saturday, October 22nd from 9 to noon, rain or shine at the Chatham Middle School until noon or until the truck gets full. So please come out and support the Senior Center. October at the Senior Center is Oktoberfest, so they do have a lot of neat events built around that. And I just want to highlight a couple of other things. They have an AARP Safe Driver Program, October 17th, October 20th. They have a nutrition program, healthy eating. They really have a lot of wonderful things, so I hope people are taking advantage of it. Somebody did ask me about pickleball. They do pickleball at the senior center, so that residents are aware of that. So if you go online, you can see their schedule. I think that's it for me.
Great. Committeewoman Fondaco.
Yes, first of all, the Historical Society, the Red Brick Schoolhouse Museum will be open this coming Sunday from 2 to 4. The Environmental Commission participated in the Sustainability Fair on Saturday. Our own police department participated too by bringing their Interceptor hybrid police vehicle. They also collected unwanted reusable bags for use at various food pantries. The townwide garage sale is coming up on October 15th, and you can make a $10 donation to the Great Swamp Watershed Association on their website in order to get your address on a digital map, which is shared to the public. Beginning on October 1st, Township residents can now drop off polystyrene for recycling at Madison Borough Recycle Center on Tuesdays and Fridays. For more information, see the Township Environmental Commission's Facebook page. The DPW, as usual, is busy, continuing cutting back vegetation with a flail mower in the township's right of way, continuing crack sealing roads in the town, crack sealed the skate park, continuing tree work around town, continuing LED upgrades to traffic lights. They started their fall sweeping of all the roads in town, continued basin repairs, the weekly maintenance for grass on rec fields and township-owned properties, started the fall-winter breakdown of Colony Pool. They started to scrap the pool, hoping the weather cooperates so they can paint it for the spring. They're striping parking lines at township-owned buildings, weekly lining of soccer on Upper and Lower Esternay. One more thing is to please continue to make your food or check donations to the Chatham United Methodist Food Pantry. Currently, they have an urgent need for all canned protein, baking mixes, dried and canned black beans, baby wipes, and personal care items. The pantries are behind the church at 460 Main Street, and you can find more information on their Facebook page, CUMC, the Community Food Pantry. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Committeeman Lois.
Thank you. Okay, for utilities, on Thursday, September 16th, we had a power outage in town that was about 1,000 residents were out of power. That's because we have 5 electrical power circuits. One circuit was down. So a little bit more or less than 20% of the township was out. The outage was due to a burned cable from a dislocated wire spacer. They think that it may have been animal contact, but no actual cause is confirmed. Service was restored by switching to another circuit and while the repairs were made, and that put many residents up within about 2 hours, and then within about 4 hours, the repair was made. But that is a issue of us only having 5 circuits compared to, let's say, our a smaller geographic area. In Chatham Borough, they have 11 circuits. So I think it's something interesting that we should be looking at as a committee to work with our utility partners to improve reliability, because obviously the more circuits, the fewer residents would be involved in any one of these outages. And in this case, they think maybe it was as simple as an animal running on the power line. Okay. For the Joint Recreation Committee, our new recreation director has informed me that the first 2 of these things have been are underway already, but the Joint Recreation Committee met in early September, and they have 6 pieces of official advice. 2 of them were are already, Mr. McCann's informed me that they're already underway to have policy changes and improvements. One was the official advice of the JRAC to improve, to do a lighting extension of time from 9:15 to 9:30, and to add a 6th night of play on Saturday at both Nash Field and Shumpike Field. So that would be a policy change that's requested by the advisory committee. Another one is to improve Nash 1 baseball dugout ceilings, which are currently wire mesh. And I understand that repairs are underway for that or are planned for already. So that is That's good news. Another piece of advice from the JREC was to improve, repair, or replace the Shumpike field netting as required. Another one is to improve, grade, resurface the batting cages at Nash and at Shumpike. A fifth one is to install the shade sail style dugouts at Shunpike 1, 3, and 4. That would be the softball fields and the turf field, so that there would be a shade style that's similar to Shunpike 2. And then finally, this is one that we've talked about here before, official advice to investigate software and data solutions for field allocation, so that scheduling interfaces through an application program interface in a continuous data exchange with the existing club scheduling solutions. So it would be a software solution to allow scheduling to happen and for there to be a master view of scheduling the fields, and so that the current allocation that's going on could be set in that same software. So that's, I think that dovetails with things we've talked about here. Colony Pool, we ended 20% higher in revenue than budget, so that's good news. And then finally, the Finance Committee met for its mid-year review about 4 weeks ago. We reviewed the financials current to July 31st for the township. So the revenue in many categories is nearly 100% of budgeted at that point. So at July 31st. So revenues, both anticipated and unanticipated revenues, were looking very, very good and on track. There was a more appropriate allocation of expenses due to the budgeting process. So that really showed that the nearly 20% tax increase of the previous 2 years was truly unnecessary and not prudent. And then further, that the debt restructuring has made a major difference. So the $17.3 million that we restructured this year that wasn't done previously made it a big difference to the budget. And given the rising rates, clearly the only thing that could have made it better would have been that had been done more appropriately prior to this year. So all things finance looking good.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hamilton?
Just if I could ask a follow-up question, Committee Member Lois.
Sure.
So this might be a rhetorical question, but to the extent you just reported about the Joint Rec Committee's recent meeting in September, would it be fair to say? Would it be accurate to say that the Joint Rec Committee is alive and well, and our Joint Rec program with Chatham Borough is ongoing and thriving?
No, it is alive and well. And I have to tell you that to have 6 motions made and passed, and these were not contentious, these were all unanimous, that if you review the meeting minutes to prior years, it's showing an even more healthy and vibrant and reinvigorated committee, which I believe is kind of finding its voice, not only for our township, but also for the borough, because they're actively making suggestions. And although these could have all come from me, they were not from me. These were from the clubs, through members on the committee who made the motions and wanted these changes.
So to the extent that some people, for whatever reason, continue to post on Facebook things like the Joint Rec Committee has been abolished or the Joint Rec Agreement has been terminated, that's just not accurate, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's political hay. Yes.
Just making sure. The library, the Chathams has, at long last, because this has been something that we've been looking for some time, officially hired their first emerging technologies and dedicated teen librarian. Her name is Liz Day, and she'll be beginning that in that post on October 17th. So unfortunately, the coding guys left already, but she's going to be dealing with a lot of those issues, and I encourage everybody, particularly teens and parents, to stop by and say hello to her. And it's a long way out, and there'll certainly be future reminders, but the annual volunteers luncheon for the library and holiday party has now been set for December 2nd. And at that function, the mayor's plural joint library volunteer of the year award will be presented. And I guess we need to say it again, make sure that you lock your cars. There's been multiple continued, sightings of people attempting to take vehicles both here and in the borough. So please continue to be vigilant in that regard. And as committee member Ewald and I discussed, don't be hesitant. Don't think, well, maybe that's not what I think it is. If you see something that you think it's suspicious, please call the police immediately.
That's all.
I do believe we had an actual car stolen just 5 days ago, or 5 or 6 days ago. Is that,
Oh, on Longwood, was it?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
it was 5 or
that's
6 days.
true.
Time
Yes.
goes fast, but
Yes.
it's within this week. Yeah.
Yeah. Still happening, always.
Yeah, it's terrible. Do any of you guys have a report?
Other than what was said in executive session, Mayor, no, I have
Okay.
no, nothing else to report.
Mr. Shihadi?
It was all in executive.
Okay. Mr. LaConte?
For anyone that's voting by mail-in ballot, the drop box outside the municipal building is now opened by the county as somewhere that mail-in voters can drop off their ballot directly rather than using the postal service.
Great. Now on to the.
I'm sorry,
hearing-
Mayor, but I have a question for the clerk, if you would indulge
Okay.
me. Just on the voting, Greg, in years past, you had gone over voting and I feel like it's still somewhat confusing. Would you be willing to do a report on that maybe next time? Or, I mean,
Certainly.
or I don't know if you have information now, but it does seem, because I believe there are 3 ways to vote this year still.
Yeah, there'll be mail-in voting, which has been something that's been around for years, since long before I was an eligible voter. And we used to call it absentee balloting. Absentee balloting was done away with and replaced by mail-in voting, because you don't actually have to be absent to vote by mail. Then there's the normal in-person voting on election day. And starting last year, we have the early voting, which I don't have that information handy, but I can have that for the next meeting to report on. And that'll be at several locations around the county. And then it was during the pandemic that the state introduced the idea of having these drop boxes as somewhere for people to, a secure location for people to drop off their ballot rather than having the risk of having it get lost in the mail.
Thank you. Yep.
I believe I know the answer to this, just to confirm, because I think it came back last year after the pandemic, but the voting in person on election day, it's going to be back to the same way it always was, at the various precincts at Corpus Christi. And
Yeah, it'll be at our normal, just like the June primary, it'll be the same place that you've, the primary, we had a little bit of a snafu with some people that the county found that some people had been inadvertently placed in the wrong voting district, and they corrected that. So there were some people that were affected by that, but for the most part, people vote in the normal voting locations where they've been voting for years. And if anyone has a question on where they should vote, they can call me during normal hours.
Perfect. All right. We are now on to the hearing of citizens. Oh, he said he didn't have any. He's not on. He's not. Yeah, Mr. Rushkey doesn't have a report, does he?
No, so in anticipation of the workshop meetings, committee woman, all the department heads are now going to be going on a cycle where they'll provide a written report at the end of this month for the next meeting, rather than present in person at these. So they'll all be at the workshop meeting next month, and you'll have their reports in advance to review with their highlights. If there's any questions, then they'll be there to answer.
All right. Okay, currently the committee room is open to the public and we look forward to having you join us. Additionally, this meeting is being made available for public participation remotely. If you're watching cable TV on Comcast Channel 29 or Fios Channel 26, you can participate in the public comment section of this meeting by dialing the phone numbers which are listed on the agenda and which are shown on your TV screen. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during the public comment section by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please say your name, spell your last name, and give your street number. As a reminder, all public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish before responding. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment during the public comment period. Written comments submitted to the clerk before 3 p.m. will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments, and duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services. Now, is there any written comments?
Yes, I do have one. This is from, I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly, Kathy Mata, Green Village Road. This came today. She says, Mr. LeConte, please read this for public comment at tonight's meeting. I've reached out to the township many times regarding the property adjacent to mine, which has several issues, including debris from demolition, water drainage issues that began shortly after the demolition, dead and fallen trees, and other problems. I've been in contact with Mayor Felice for well over a year regarding this issue, and while I've received many encouraging messages of investigation, there has been no responses addressing the issues. Moreover, in the last 2 months, I've not been able to get a response of any kind. How will this be addressed? Below, please find a substantive but select history of correspondence. I sincerely appreciate any assistance you may provide. Thank you. And then it includes some correspondence history, but this strikes me as something that should probably be deferred to our administrator and engineer to look into.
Yeah, I had spoken with our administrator, getting him up to speed on this issue. And you were going to meet with our engineer. Did anything else you want to add?
No, I'm gonna schedule a meeting with our engineer, public works director, and even I did see some mention of county involvement in this. and
Yes,
so-
there is, the county is.
Yeah. So I will try to coordinate that but I will respond to the resident just to let her know that I'm working on it and hopefully can get the response to her that's a bit more conclusive, what the outcome will be. I can't promise anything just yet.
Yeah. Yes. All right, is there any other written comments? Okay, anybody want to speak? All right, is there anybody on Zoom? All right, so we're going to close the public hearing and move on to the final adoption of ordinances. I get a motion to adopt? I do the motion to adopt the ordinance and then, or do the public comment first? Okay, sorry. Okay, let's reopen the public hearing of citizens on the ordinance 2022-11 establishing bylaws. Yep, please come up to the microphone.
Good evening, everyone. Ron Rubino from Rose Terrace. I'd like to comment on Article 3 under meetings. In Section 6, it states that regular workshop and special meetings shall be open to the public. And in Section 11, I'm sure this is just an oversight, but it does says regular workshop committee meetings will be broadcast and live streamed. Am I to assume that the workshop and special meetings are not going to be live streamed?
That's not, basically, we don't know. The workshop meetings are we don't know how they're gonna work yet. We haven't done them before. I think the last time they were done was 15, 20 years ago. Greg, didn't you mention that? We don't know how they're gonna work. So the thought process is we're gonna try it out in a situation where we can have a roundtable discussion, which this room doesn't necessarily bode well for a roundtable discussion at the moment, at the time. So we may need to do it in the community room. It's still open to the public. Everyone's still allowed to come. I don't know at the time if we're able to broadcast immediately. So we didn't want to fully limit our ability to. It is 100% open to the public, but we just don't know. It's a work in progress. We're just trying to figure it out to see if it works. And if it's a terrible idea, then we'll scrap it. But we're just trying to figure it out.
Would it
See
be
what's more.
prudent? I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
No, I'd say, would it be prudent to pass this ordinance without having that caveat in place as an open public meeting? It should be live streamed, especially if these meetings are and workshops are considered open public meetings. That should also be live streamed as well as special sessions.
Well, actually, Mayor, if I may,
Wait,
public-
let's make sure that he's done first. Is there any other
No, I'm
questions?
finished. Thank you.
Okay.
open public meetings don't have to be live streamed. They just have to be open to the public. It wasn't until the COVID pandemic and the governor issued his order that he allowed for public meetings to be conducted through Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say it is my goal to make sure, because I agree with you, whatever we can make, the public is, we should try and engage them as much as possible. So it's my goal to make sure that it's all live streamed and it's all, and we talked about this when we were discussing the bylaws, that would be the goal. In my opinion, if it has to come back in here for a workshop meeting, then that's what we do. But I do understand this October is experimental, so I'm kind of,
Basically, the goal with the workshop was to actually make the whole process more collaborative and more open. Because right now, the way agendas are decided and created, it's by the mayor who meets with the attorney and the administrator and the clerk. And what the workshop meeting would do would, first of all, allow the public into that process. And it would allow all committee members to have an input into the agenda, as well as our department heads. So you have everybody, it'll be a much more collaborative process. With that comes, I want to make it as public as possible. That's the point of the workshop meeting. It's just, I don't know the technology, we're still trying to figure out our own technology in this room, which we can't, figure out properly, which has been going on for a year. So I don't think it would be prudent to commit in an ordinance that we're going to broadcast everything. We know we can broadcast in here. So that's what we are committing to. I think anything else, I think it would just be, it wouldn't be responsible.
Understood. I believe that in open public meetings, the Zoom was such a great experiment, and it brings the public in who can't come in person.
Right.
So leaving that out from a workshop or a special.
We're
meeting-
not supposed to be, we don't
Oh,
go
okay.
back and forth. That's why I asked it for, but so I'm sorry.
Mayor, that's something that we can look into if it's
It's
feasible.
something that, right, which we intend to looking into. Is there any other individuals from the public?
I would
All
just
right.
say though that even prior to Zoom, we were broadcasting these meetings. So the COVID pandemic and all of that had nothing to do with access to these meetings outside these walls in this building.
Nobody was able to participate in meetings before Zoom remotely.
I understand.
That was the main issue. All right, so seeing nobody else, I'm going to close the hearing of citizens on the establishment of the bylaws and move to discussion. I guess, no, first it's is there a motion to adopt?
so move.
Okay, now discussion.
I'm pleased with a lot of changes. I do agree that the goal is to, to try and get the information out to residents and to broadcast and live stream if we can. But there are a lot of great features. I'm pleased we're adding back the second hearing of citizens. Just so residents are aware, there was a section about kind of pay-to-play that got pulled out so we could have a separate ordinance, which is on this agenda as well. I'm trying to remember the other key highlights. Oh, yeah, and then the breakout of, where is it? Okay, the breakout committees and boards, an additional recreation board, and then the reorganization of those committees, which I think will work better.
We also changed the fair and open process.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes.
Oh, yes, that was a big one. Yeah, so a lot of this did start because there were some concerns about kind of surprises at the dais here. So making sure that there's advance notice for resolutions and things that are being introduced for discussion.
If I can just piggyback on comments that our attorney made earlier, with the televising the meetings and having it on Zoom, those are certainly nice things to have, and I think we should continue to do them. But it should be understood that for sake of open public meetings compliance, they are not legally required. But we do want to be transparent as possible and do those whenever we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. That's why we're putting this. That's why we wanted to try out the workshop meeting. Anybody else have any input?
My question about the workshop meetings is, does this order of business apply to the workshop meetings? And then Mayor, you had just said that the public would be able to participate in the meetings in an enhanced way. How do you see that happening, or will they have input on the agenda?
Well, there's a public comment section. That's how they can input. And for order of business, no, the order of business will probably be different. Is we don't,
The order of business, we purposely changed the language to make sure
Right.
that that was the order of business
For-
regardless. However, the expectation is that workshop meetings, it's not the intent to vote, although
right,
we will reserve that option. But the intent is for this to be a working meeting, a collaborative meeting, and to have the voting at the subsequent meeting. So we have the order of business because we're going to basically, at any meeting, potentially have any of those items. But occasionally, we don't always have citizen awards. We don't always
Right.
have,
right.
So Mayor, historically with workshop meetings, the focus would be principally on discussion. The committee would still have the right and the authority to take action as necessary, but just speaking from my own opinion, I would envision that being things that were extremely routine and not to say that they wouldn't be substantive, but it would be, like if there was payment of bills or approving minutes or something that was incredibly routine and not.
And this
not
is a
needing
very
discussion.
common practice. Many towns use workshop meetings as well as school boards and other organizations. It's more to be more open.
And the agenda for your workshop, it's going to grow. It's almost a living document where there's going to be action items that are going to take more than sometimes a month. And they're going to be always put on that agenda of old business and then potentially some new business based upon certain things that may happen in the township.
So I'm just not clear about my question. So the order of business will not apply to the workshop meeting, or it will apply to the workshop meetings?
it says all meetings, it applies.
All right, can we go through a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now we are moving to ordinance 2022-12, establishing a fair and open process. Now going to open up the hearing of citizens on this topic. Anybody want to opine on the fair and open process ordinance that we? I don't see anybody in the committee room. Is there anybody on Zoom? All right, can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion?
Again, just to make residents aware, in the past, way back when, there wasn't really a formal annual bid process. There was an effort to start putting in an annual for our professional services, which there was about 27. Now there's a lot more professional services that are provided. And our new administrator is absolutely comfortable. So where it was moved towards kind of a rotating, 3-year process to ensure that there were bids that were being done periodically. Our administrator is comfortable and has done before annual bids. So regardless of the volume, I think it's a great change. I think it helps improve the process overall. So I'm pleased he was willing to take that on. So that's what the big change is in this ordinance.
Anybody else have any opinions? Basically, my thought process, go ahead.
Going to say likewise, it's always positive when we have things that I think the committee members all agree on and just agree with what Mrs. Ewald just said. We're appreciative that the new administrator was willing to take on what might be a little bit of additional work, but in the interest of best practices and the ideal way we like things to operate, I think it's a good change.
Yeah, you said it better than I could have, so. Anybody else? All right, we're gonna move to a roll call.
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, now moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt?
Second.
All right, and a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Fandako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
And that includes the bus lease extension.
Yes. Now, moving on to the non-consent, which is resolution 278, authorizing mayor to sign deed restriction. Can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Findako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And resolution 2022-279, authorizing settlement agreement for PBA grievance. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
And a roll call?
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mrs. Findako,
Yes.
Mr. Lois,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hamilton,
Yes.
and Mayor Felice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Nice quick meeting tonight. Can I get we have no other discussions, no other executive session. I think we should be good to go. Just wanted a reminder to everybody that our next meeting will be the workshop meeting. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. Have a good evening.